guys, this is Colby with Moto Safari, just checking in today on the way to work. I know it's been a little while. It's actually it's a cool day outside today. Feels good. Out on the BMW S1000 single R today. Favorite commuter bike that can be insane. Just got this bad boy broken in a couple days ago, so she is fully unlocked. Those of you who know BMW bikes know it's got a rev limiter up at about 9K until you break it in. Woo. So today I want to talk about cost of ownership of BMW motorcycles and Ducati motorcycles. Like, is it worth it to go European in regards to motorcycles? And I've had a first service on both my BMW and my Ducati, and I can tell you accurately kind of how much it will cost you from there. In my opinion, owning one of these motorcycles is almost like getting into a Lamborghini or Ferrari. It's like, if you don't take care of these things, they will come back to haunt you, if that makes sense. Now, BMW motorcycles like this, they do have warehouses in the US. If things go wrong, you can get parts the next day. But with Ducati, they do not. So if your Ducati breaks down, you could be out 3 weeks or so before a part gets here. Now, it's not like these bikes break all the time, and I know Ducati specifically has a bad rap, but in regards to that, most people just get upset because of how long it'll take to get a part back. So let's just go through from the start how much a first service cost. So for the Ducati, the first service, including labor from me, was around $400. There's a lot of stuff to be done there. They have to adjust everything. Obviously the first oil change, making sure it's mapped correctly. The BMW was mid 300s as well for the first service. So a lot of you guys with Japanese bikes, your first service probably wasn't that expensive. I mean, it's probably just a chain check, an oil change, and go from there, making sure your levers are adjusted right. But these motorcycles, specifically my V4S and my S1000, have a ton of electronic components. So it's super important to make sure everything's working correctly, and they can see that when they look at it. So you're looking almost $400 for both of them from a first service when you get to your 600-mile service. So from there, you're going up. I mean, I'll last at least a year till I have to do anything like an oil change or service to these motorcycles again. I think it's like 5,000 miles or more on both these motorcycles till you would have to get them serviced again. Now with Ducati, now BMW has a service that is a major service, but I want to talk about Ducati first. So Ducati at about 16,000 miles, I'm not sure what it is on the V4, has this thing called a Desmo service, which is pretty much taking apart your whole motorcycle. Now, I imagine that most of you will not take your V4 to 16,000 miles because it's not a touring motorcycle, and that would honestly be pretty extensive to do. It's not like you're on a BMW GS or a Multistrada. So at that 16,000 mile mark, or wherever the Desmo service is per bike, you're looking at probably around $3,000. And that's a lot, but that is kind of taking apart your whole entire engine and rebuilding it back, making sure every component is good. So that's one thing to look out for. You're not really going to run into a crazy major service like that with anyone else. Otherwise, you get past the first service and you do your regular intervals, it's really not that much different, in my opinion. Now, these motorcycles are, you know, a little bit more expensive to get into, but in the long term, you know, the electronic components in themselves, to me, justify the price in a lot of ways. Now, Yamaha and Honda, Suzuki, Kawasaki, all those guys know what they're doing, and they've had proven concepts. But European motorcycles like BMW, Ducati, Aprilia even, they have that extra oomph inside of them, in my opinion. So to me, it's worth it. It feels like an exclusive bike. There's not a lot of people on them. Now, I will say, in my opinion, BMW is just a more reliable bike. They have proven concepts like the Boxer engine and the GS that I've run into people with over 150,000 miles on a Boxer engine. That is insanity for a motorcycle. And they just go and go and go. So a lot of motorcycles by BMW have that Boxer engine, including the GS, the R9T, the RT, and I believe that's it. Yeah, so that's pretty much your standard, just we'll keep on going forever engine. Now, this bike that I'm riding right now has their 4-cylinder Superbike engine in it. It's down-tuned a little bit from the old R engine. They've rebuilt the R engine for 2020. This is the older one. It's down-tuned to the mid-range, so it's a lot more practical and has a lot more power in the mid-range. This is just it's a straight beast. And, you know, honestly, it's way overpowered for what it is, but, you know, we live in America, or most of us do. You realize that most all of us are overkill at everything we do in that regard. So the other thing I did get adjusted the other day was the clutch, so I'm getting used to shifting again. It was super set all the way back in, so they took it out a little bit for me, so I'm getting back used to it. So yeah, if you can get past, you know, the cost of that first service, and you don't plan on riding the bike into the absolute dirt if you have a Ducati to that Desmo service, the cost of ownership isn't that much more, in my opinion. You're going to pay a couple hundred more for that first service, but as long as you're keeping an eye on your bike and making sure that chain is lubed up, making sure that your service intervals are followed, these things will be just as reliable, in my opinion. And I know Ducati gets a bad rap, I know they do, but I have yet to see one, you know, being at the dealership a couple times a week helping them out. I have yet to see one come in with a guy saying, oh, my Ducati engine exploded, I'm done. Like, I know those cases have happened, but I think people take the vast, you know, the small percentage and they place that upon the entire population of Ducati. And I will say this, once you own a Ducati, you'll kind of realize, like, okay, this is something special, you know. There is some history behind those motorcycles, especially if you're on a V4 or 1099 or 959. Like, those are race bikes. I mean, they weren't built to go 200,000 miles, but maybe they will. You know, BMWs are more built, and they're famous for the GSs. And I will say, if you are an adventure rider or a tourer, like, there is no better motorcycle than a BMW GS. I would say that is 100% worth the investment over any other touring motorcycle, in my opinion. That is just an insane bike for the money. The last thing I want to talk about is if you don't pay, and I know most people won't pay for their motorcycles in cash if they're buying them new, but I do want to talk about the program that I've used to buy both of my Ducati and BMW. It's BMW 3 Easy Pay, and on the Ducati side it's Ducati Premier Financing. So pretty much what that does is you finance up to a residual amount, and then there's a balloon payment at the end. So it's like the concept of a lease with complete ownership, and your payment's like 40% lower. So you're paying, you know, really low. So my payment on this bike, just in perspective, is low 200s, which is, you know, I bet most of you guys would definitely grab this if you could hear that, hey, I can get this bike for low 200s a month. That's nothing for what you get. And then at the end of it, it'll tell you what the residual will be, and then you'll either be responsible to refinance that or pay that residual in cash, or you can just trade this back in, and if you don't just ride the poo out of it or put it down, like you might have some equity in the bike to trade towards another one. So every 3 or 4 years, I'll probably be trading out and trading up into the new model instead of being stuck in a bike. In a traditional financing deal, you know, you're negative virtually the entire time. Like there is and until you get to that last year, you're probably not positive in the motorcycle, just because if you're consistently riding it, etc., those deals are built to make money for the bank and the dealership and whatever it may be, mainly the bank, whether it be BMW Financial or Ducati Financial or Volkswagen. So it made a lot more sense for me because I could get into like 2 motorcycles for the price of one. Now, keep in mind, on big engine bikes, you have to worry about insurance as well. Like my insurance on these is ridiculously expensive. But, you know, that's just the price you gotta pay. That's gonna be for any bike, displacement. But yeah, guys, I hope that this helped. I know I was rambling a little bit about these motorcycles, but it's really easier for you to get into these than you think, and especially for Ducati, minus that Desmo service, it's not as expensive to get into one as you would think. And as long as you're close to a reputable dealer, I wouldn't worry about it anyway, just because, you know, you're gonna have the factory warranty. So most of the stuff that would happen would probably happen up front for any motorcycle if it happened. So just making sure you don't buy one that's way away from a dealer, or the dealer has no idea what they're doing, or you take it to a mom and pop shop that says, oh, I've worked on a Ducati before. I wouldn't do that. Know your mechanic, know your dealer. That's the other thing that's important with buying one of these motorcycles. You don't want someone messing with these that has no idea what they're doing. So anyway, guys, hope you have a great day. I'm pulling into work here, and I will see you on the flip side. If you haven't, please subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and put on notifications, and I'll see you guys on the flip side.